There is a particular moment, quiet, often invisible, when a lie stops being a choice and becomes a system, not a single false statement, not exaggeration, but a structure of reality built on distortion. By the time most people realize they're dealing with a pathological liar, the damage is already done. Careers have derailed, companies have collapsed, families have fractured, and the liar, often still insisting, calmly, convincingly, that none of it is their fault. This isn't about villains twirling mustaches or obvious con artists. The most dangerous pathological liars don't look deceptive. They look competent. They speak fluently in confidence, urgency, and vision. They offer clarity when others hesitate. They sound certain when reality is messy. Today we're dissecting the psychology of pathological liars, not to sensationalize them, but to understand how their minds work, why institutions fail to stop them, and how entire systems bend around falsehoods until collapse becomes inevitable. Because pathological lying doesn't just distort truth, it rewrites incentives, corrodes trust, and quietly reprograms the behavior of everyone nearby. Pathological lying is not simply lying a lot. It is a behavioral pattern where deception becomes habitual, compulsive, and strategically adaptive, often without obvious external gain. Clinically, pathological liars demonstrate low internal cost for deception, high narrative fluency, selective emotional authenticity, an unusual tolerance for contradiction, but psychology alone doesn't explain why these individuals so often rise, not fall, inside corporations, markets, and power structures. To understand that, we have to zoom out. This is a story about feedback loops, how confidence substitutes for competence, how speed outruns verification, how systems reward certainty more than truth, and why, in high-stakes environments, pathological liars don't break systems. Systems elevate them. Let's explore the core psychological engine. At the center of pathological lying is a paradox. These individuals are often less anxious about lying than truthful people are about being misunderstood. Neuropsychological studies suggest reduced activation in regions associated with guilt and moral conflict, paired with heightened reward sensitivity. Translation: the act of lying doesn't register as risk, it registers as utility. But here's the critical insight. Pathological liars don't experience their lies as falsehoods in real time. They experience them as provisional truths, narrative optimizations, necessary corrections to an unfair or incomplete reality. This is why they can pivot instantly when challenged, without visible stress. And to observers, emotional consistency feels more trustworthy than factual accuracy, and that emotional steadiness becomes a weapon. For pathological liars, narrative control beats factual accuracy. Human beings don't evaluate truth objectively, we evaluate it relationally. Pathological liars understand this intuitively. They excel at anchoring conversations emotionally before introducing claims, framing contradictions as misunderstandings, not errors, presenting certainty during moments of collective uncertainty. In organizations, this has consequences. When timelines slip, numbers blur, or forecasts fail, the pathological liar doesn't defend data. They defend momentum. They speak in inevitabilities. This always looks messy before it works. You're reacting emotionally. You'll understand later. Over time, teams stop asking, "Is this true?" and start asking, "What's the safest version of belief right now?" That's the pivot point where institutions begin adapting to the lie, rather than confronting it. Now, let's understand why systems reward pathological liars. Modern systems prize speed, confidence, simplified narratives, charismatic certainty. Verification is slow, doubt is socially expensive, and truth is often complicated. Pathological liars thrive because they reduce complexity into emotionally satisfying explanations, especially under pressure. In markets, this inflates valuations. In corporations, it masks structural weakness. In leadership, it concentrates power around storytelling rather than accountability. Crucially, pathological liars don't just lie upward. They manage belief downward, rewarding loyalty, punishing skepticism, and reframing dissent as incompetence or negativity. This creates a chilling effect. Smart people self-censor. Risk managers get sidelined. early warnings disappear, and by the time hard reality reasserts itself, the organization has already reorganized around false premises. Let's talk about the escalation trap. Pathological lying is not static. It escalates. Each successful deception raises the cost of truth. Each rewarded lie increases narrative complexity. Each avoided consequence reinforces invincibility. Eventually, the liar isn't lying to gain advantage. They're lying to avoid narrative collapse. At this stage, you'll see increasing hostility toward verification, overconfidence in last-minute reversals, moral reframing of deception as leadership necessity. And here's the fatal pattern. When truth finally intrudes, pathological liars don't course correct. They double down. Not because they're stupid, but because admitting reality would destroy the identity they've constructed. This is why collapses often look sudden from the outside, but felt inevitable to those paying attention. Now, what about the collateral damage? Pathological liars rarely implode alone. Their behavior normalizes dishonesty among subordinates, punishes ethical hesitation, trains teams to prioritize optics over substance. Long after the liar exits, the damage lingers. Broken internal trust, risk-averse innovation, cynicism disguised as professionalism. In financial terms, the cost isn't just losses, it's opportunity decay. In human terms, it's burnout, silence, and disengagement. In systemic terms, it's the erosion of truth as a shared operating principle. Here's the hard truth about detection. There is no single tell, no universal gotcha, no lie detector for pathological deception, but there are patterns. Precision without substance, confidence untethered from verification, blame that always flows outward, stories that optimize perception rather than accuracy. The most reliable signal isn't the lie itself. It's the behavioral gravity around the liar. When people stop asking questions, not because they're satisfied, but because it feels unsafe, that's your warning. C. Call to action. Pathological liars don't survive because everyone is foolish. They survive because systems quietly reward narrative dominance over truth. Understanding this psychology isn't about paranoia. It's about literacy, narrative literacy, power literacy, risk literacy. If this analysis sharpened how you see confidence, authority, or persuasion, subscribe for deeper dissections into the psychology shaping modern power structures. And if you've ever watched a lie reshape an entire environment before collapsing, share this video with someone who needs language for what they already sense. Because the most dangerous lies aren't loud. They're stable, convincing, and emotionally comfortable until they aren't.